So what's the worst thing about programming on a Mac? Let's talk about it. Welcome back, everybody. Today I wanted to complain a little bit in a way that I hope will help you beginners as you're thinking about what type of machine and operating system you want to run on or what you want to use for your programming. Also, it might be a little bit of a cry for help because some of you may have figured out some stuff that I haven't yet. And so if you have, please chime in down in the comments and help me sort out my issues. But one thing that you may have noticed if you have watched this channel very long is that I typically use a Mac. And there are a lot of things I love about my Mac, both in terms of what applications are available and just the attention to detail in terms of aesthetics and usability in the user interface. There's just some things I really like about it. So Apple, if you're listening, this is not just a slam video. I'm not just trying to rip on you. I just want you to be the Apple that I know you can be. And seriously, it's time to up your game just a little bit. Because you may also have noticed that in some of my videos, sometimes I switch over to Linux, usually in a virtual machine, occasionally on a remote server. And what about Windows? What about Windows? Do you ever switch to Windows? Nope, I pretty much never switch to Windows. Sorry. But anyway, why do I switch? Well, sometimes naturally we're working on things that are specific to Linux. I use Linux in a lot of the classes that I teach, and so maybe I'm working on a project in Linux for the class and I think, let's make a video about this. But there's also another reason that comes up, and that is that some of the tools that I like to use aren't available or don't work well on a Mac. So let's look at an example. Okay, so here I have an example that I just want to look at. It's going to appear in a future video on graph data structures. Be sure to subscribe so you don't miss that one. It's going to be coming soon. But the point is that this code has a bug in it. And it compiles just fine, but if I run it, then it segfaults, which you're going to say, no problem, just load it up in a debugger. And my first complaint is that my go-to debugger is GDB, and GDB sort of doesn't really work very well on Mac OS. At least I haven't been able to get it to work. If you figured it out without using nasty kernel hacks and OS reverse engineering, please let me know down in the comments. Actually, feel free to send me the ugly kernel hacks too, because I'm into that kind of thing too. That would be fun, but that's okay. So right now you could say, well, why don't you just use LLDB? And so yeah, we can do that. We can say LLDB main and we can run it. And sometimes this happens, right? Where it crashes outside of your debugger, but then you get it in the debugger and it works just fine. You have a Heisenbug. And because we're in memory error land, typically what I would do in this case is switch to Valgrind, because Valgrind actually looks at my allocations and can give me much better insights into what's happening in terms of memory usage. But one of the challenges that we run into is that Valgrind isn't going to work on my Mac if I try to install it. Then one thing you're going to notice here is that it's basically going to say, if only you were running Linux, I believe. And yep, basically for this software, Linux is required, which isn't very helpful when I'm not running on Linux. So what I would do here is I would switch over to a Linux virtual machine and we would just compile. Let's just recompile it for Linux, make sure everything is going to work okay. And then we can see, okay, so yeah, so we've got some kind of problem. We're getting different output here, but now I can run GDB and whatever. And so you can see kind of where the bug's showing up, and that's going to work just fine here. But then I can also, so I could have used GDB for that, but you can have Heisenbugs in Linux as well. I'm not saying you don't have Heisenbugs in Linux, but so we can also say, I want to see Valgrind for main. And this is also going to tell me, hey, you've got some memory problems up here. And so that's really great. So hopefully this helps you see some of the tools I use, but also why I switch back and forth, because sadly I end up having to go to a Linux virtual machine just so I can use tools like Valgrind on a fairly regular basis. So anyway, I just wanted to throw that out there, and hopefully Apple hears this and takes this as encouragement for them to support open and free and awesome development tools. And also to let you beginners out there know about some of these issues, or maybe some of you non-beginners that just haven't tried to develop stuff on Mac OS. Maybe I can save you some time and effort. And we'll make a celebration video as soon as Apple fixes these issues, but until then, we'll just keep doing what we're doing, and so until next week, I'll see you later.